Hey everyone, this is Daniel, and in today's video I want to talk about how you can archive SharePoint lists using Power Automate Flow. So most of the time this is a very simple process because you just go in the flow and you can create a copy item action and it just takes care of that. But in this scenario over here, what I want to talk about are the lists which have a little bit of those extra column types, the ones that need a little bit more attention. That's what I'll be focusing on in this video over here. So let's take a look at the type of columns. Over here, it's the multiple line of text with append changes. Now the append changes are the ones, usually, comments are a great example where you can go ahead and click on, start appending comments to the existing ones. Archiving those can be a little bit more interesting. So I'll be talking about that. I'll also talk about the choice type columns, especially those where you've got multiple items selected. How do you work with that? Lookup is another great example. And then finally, the manage metadata type. So I'll show you the flow, I'll give you an example, and then with this one it'll actually all make sense. So now that you understand what is the overall concept of this video, let's jump in and take a look at the demo itself. Alright, so let's just switch over from the slide and go to the actual SharePoint lists over here. So I can actually walk you through that first. What I have in my SharePoint is I've got two lists. One is the one which is the original list over there, and that's why I call it with append. And then I have a secondary list. I call it without append, but you can call that as the archive list, whatever works for you. But that's the one where we're doing copying over to. So in the with append list, or the primary list, what I have is in the list settings, when I go, you'll actually see a quick overview of the column types. The simple title is the easy one. Then you have comment, document URL, node type, and everything. But let's look at the type. In the type, you've got the single line of text. But let's take a look at what the comment is. So in the comment, it is a multiple line of text, but I've got the append changes to existing text. I've marked that as yes, which means that in this one, there's actually appending going on over there. The other things are the node type. It is a choice type column. So when I look at the node type over here, I've got two of these choices over here. So that's one type of column over there. Then the other one is in the lookup. It's for the students. And for the students, I'm actually looking up another list. And from that other list, it's called as the test one. In that list, there's a student name column. And from that, I'm going to go ahead and pull some information. And I'm also going ahead and getting a manage metadata type. There's also books. Books over here. Again, I've manually entered those. Again, another great scenario. So I went ahead and did that. And then, and there's a checkbox, allow multiple selections. So it kind of gives you a full overview, that this could be the most complex type of scenario when you're archiving. And finally is the manage metadata type. Now in the manage metadata, I've actually got a term set called people. And in that, there's another subset called department. And you see in departments, there's a bunch of departments. And that's the manage metadata type column that I have. So what I can do is let's go to this list and actually put in some examples. So I've already got two tests over here, test 1, test 2. Let me go ahead and add test 3. This is, oh, I got caps on, that's why. This is the first entry for the live demo. Document URL, I can go ahead and put in, anything else. For now, I'll just say this is the, let's just say, text for test 3 document. And in the document, I could literally put in anything. I'll just go ahead and put in, HTTPS, Power Apps, or flow.microsoft.com. Note type. Let's say, what note types do I have? I'll do history and physical. I'll go ahead and put in some selections for student. I'll go ahead and put in some book selections. I'm going to do history, math. Let me just go ahead and put in all of them so you guys get a good example. Department. Department, again, it's coming from the manage metadata. There's a term set. I'm going to say it's from the IT department over here. Click on it, select it, and we're okay. And then, if you want to add any attachments, that's fine. So I went ahead and added 3. but I want to go ahead and make actually a little bit more changes to that. So I'll select this, and I'm going to go ahead and edit, and I want to start appending a little bit of text, to really give you that value. Because I've already got the first entry I went and put in. See, this is the first entry. So now I'm going to say this is the second entry for the live demo. Let's go ahead and save that. And just to make sure that this is foolproof, I'm going to go ahead and add a third entry over there. So I'll go ahead and click on that and say this is the third entry for the live demo. Save it. Okay, so everything is good. We've got all the entry that we want. Now, just let's go ahead and run the flow, right? See how it is, because it's going to copy from this one and it's going to save it over that one. So let me just go over here, and I call this copy from with append to without append. For the sake of this demo, I'm going to kind of pause it and talk about the flow, what kicks off the flow. For the sake of this demo, I'm actually going ahead and just doing it as, run it when I actually manually click on it or click on the button over here. But for you guys, when you're actually going ahead and taking this as a production type of situation, you can come over here and you can, in the create, when you're building this flow, you can create as a scheduled flow. So when you're creating it as a scheduled flow, you can actually go ahead and say, what is the kickoff time for this? What is the repetitive? You want to do it on a daily, you want to do it on a weekly or a monthly basis. This is very helpful for you when you want to actually archive it, because in the real life scenario, depending on how fast those lists get populated, you can go ahead and set it up that, hey, this list is getting populated really fast. Maybe I do it daily, or in somebody else's scenario, once a month might be sufficient. But this is a really helpful option, which is building a scheduled flow. So keep that in mind. Again, in my case, I don't have a big example, and I don't have it, obviously I'm recording it and I'm demoing it. So I'm just going to manually kick it off. That's why I have the manual kickoff one. So what I'll do is I'll just come over here so we can actually get into the flow, and I'm going to go ahead and click on run. So when I click on run, it comes up with this, do you want to run flow? I said, yep, I'll go ahead and run the flow, and you'll see it is running. Obviously click on done over here. And when it's running, it's going through its process, and then it's going ahead and make a copy from the with append to the without append, or the parent one to the child one, or the production one to the backup, whatever terminology works for you. But that's what's going on right now over here. So once it is done, in fact, I can go and click on it, you'll see that most of the time is spent on the archiving piece, but it's actually done. So your flow runs successfully. What I was telling you is that most of the time is spent over here on the apply to each. But let's just go and see. So this one, with append, no changes over there. But now, over here, if I go and refresh it, I actually have some data come in over here. And check this out. Let's actually spend a few minutes looking at it. So over here, I have actually now got all the data, even the appended data coming in. Now granted, the date format can be changed, but that's the easy part, right? You can go ahead and work on the UTC now and change the formatting. That's easy. This is the key thing, is that now I got the actual version label. I went ahead and got the date was modified. I went and got the comment and the editor. All four of them I went ahead and picked it up. And then check out, I got the note type. I was able to get the note type which I selected. I was able to get even the multiple selection of the books, which was the history one. I selected all of those books. I went and selected that, and the manage metadata column as well. All of them came through, including the URL, the document URL. So now that you saw the demo, let me go ahead and show you how I was able to build that on the flow side. So let's now jump into the flow and take a look at that. So over here, you saw that the flow ran. I'm going to go and click on edit. And this is, the one I talked about. You don't really need to know that. That's, you can go ahead and do the scheduled one. But the first and the very most important is I'm going to use the get items step, which is the SharePoint one. And I'm going ahead and telling it specifically what is the type of SharePoint, the site address and the list over there. If you go ahead and filter it down, I just want to show you that I've not done any filtering based on the list over there. But you might leverage this as well, because say for example when you're updating the SharePoint lists, the ones from the parent one, if you've already archived that item, you could put in some type of control column over there saying that archived yes or archived no. If it is archived no, means that you're not pulling any data from there, and that you can actually use that as your filter. Now this filter query is very important because it's doing the filtering on the server side. So it's less amount of data that's coming in over here. So if you've got some kind of scenario, this is the place to do that, is only pulling in selected data to be filtered, basically data that hasn't been filtered before. So I kind of want to show you over here because I'm not doing it in this case, but I've already got this information, and in the links below, even in the article, I'll provide some more information on how you can do the query over here. There's good links available on that. Okay, so the first step or the action is pretty simple. I'm just telling Flow which site and which list I'm referencing. Now these two variables over here are, right now they don't seem very important, but they are very critical. So let me talk to you about that. Blank variable, it's a string type variable, and I'm going and setting it as a value. This is going to be very important for this variable when I'm appending all the book values. The reason I'm using that blank one is once the flow is done, I'm going to go ahead and reset that to blank by just using this blank variable. This scenario actually works really well because it's kind of a catch-all that once the variable is done with this job and when a new flow kicks off, I just want to make sure that that books variable over here will always start empty, and that's why I'm using that blanks variable. So that's why it kind of makes sense why I use that two combination. And this is just a good practice for any other flow scenarios when you're actually pulling in information, appending it, and then going ahead and saving it back again or restarting the flow. Okay, so in the apply to each is where all the magic happens, right? What I'm doing in the apply to each is I'm getting the items from the get items action that we did, right? I'm getting the items from that specific list over there. In the apply to each, I'm referencing each and every item that comes in. So remember, in this scenario, I'm going to reference each and every SharePoint list that comes in. So let me pause over here for a second and tell you that here is the importance of how that filter query, that OData filter works, because considering your scenario where if you've got a SharePoint list which is 5, 7, and 10,000 more of those items over there, you can filter the items based on that OData query that I showed you. And once you've got only filtered data coming in, this apply to each with that get items will actually run a little bit more easier. It will actually run a little bit more efficient because you're already getting filtered data. Otherwise, all those SharePoint list items are going to come through, and this apply to each step, it will take a few minutes for it to run. So kind of keep that in mind. That's why I want to kind of tell you that that filter OData query was available. So continuing, what I've done is I've gotten the value over here, and now here is the big magical one. Let me pause and kind of talk about what's happening over here. I'm getting I'm using a send a HTTP request action to SharePoint. It's the same SharePoint site over there, and I'm using the post method. Now in the post method, when you're watching this video, pause this video and spend some time on that URL, because what's happening on this URL, this section is very specifically for that comment column which has the management, which has the appending done over there. Because over here, I'm telling it's this item, whatever, the 3 items, but I'm telling list that for this specific item over here, I want to go ahead and grab each and every version of that appended comment column over there. So kind of spend a little bit of time, see how it is there's a very specific URL that we have to use over here, and it's in this URL it is mentioning the list type, it is mentioning the SharePoint item. I'm getting the very SharePoint item, the list item, using the ID over there, and I'm saying that, hey, I want to go ahead and grab all the versions, and in the versions I want to select the label, the comment, the modify, edit, and then the order by over here as well. Very, very important piece over there, and this is the only way I was successful to grab all the versionings of each and every item in that comments column over there with the appended. This is how you do it over there, is getting an HTTP request. Because SharePoint is really good with you hitting and getting all the data, but you need to know 2 things. You need to know what is that URI, which I've described over here, and then what's the header that you want to send. This is an accept, which you go ahead and apply the application /JSON, OData equals no metadata over there, and the method has to be post. You can't make any mistakes over here. It has to be dead right, accurate, otherwise it's just not going to work. Okay, so I went ahead and spent some time on that. Now let's go to the other ones, because they are pretty simple and straightforward. Based on this HTTP which call that I've done, I'm basically taking that same call, and now I'm going ahead and appending it into this nice format over here. which is going ahead and pulling in this information. I'm just basically creating nice a metadata type of column. And I'm telling that, hey, for the version label that's coming out, just put it under the the mapped column over here for each of this type. And what I do is I try to make it very simple. So for version label, I just call the maps column as version label, and so on and so forth over here. So that's how the versioning mapping is going on. I'm not actually saving data. I'm just mapping my column, the column name, to the actual data that's coming in. This is just mapping that's going on. Next one is I'm actually creating that HTML table, and I'm just dropping all of the HTML table specifically for the version comments, because I need that as a table coming in because there's multiple ones over there. And the create HTML table is the best way to do that. Now, finally, I go ahead and create the CSV table, and that CSV table is for the HTML. Now, I've actually used two different examples over here, kind of show you which works. The HTML table works much nicer because I get a nice format over here. You can also go ahead and do that as a CSV table. Now, you might wonder, Daniel, why are you doing it two separate ways? And can you just make it easy and simple to tell me which one do I use? When you're building this, go ahead and put both of them because that's going to give you the flexibility depending on where you're storing the data. Let me pause over here for a second and talk about that. In this case, my destination for the archive is the SharePoint list. You guys should go ahead and take the destination for the archive to say Azure SQL. You could put it in Excel OneDrive. And based on how you set up the column types over there, either the HTML table might work, or the HTML table format might work over there, or the CSV type of format might work over there. So I'm giving you this flexibility right here in this demo so that you have the flexibility to pick and choose where your destination is going to be. So for the sake of this example, I'm just using the HTML table, but for you, if the source destination format isn't of a big importance, you could use that for your Azure SQL or just for your SharePoint list as well. No problem over there. But I wanted to give you these two examples. And then finally, there is the apply to each. The apply to each is now for the books section of it. Remember, books was a multiple choice column over there. Over there, I'm going ahead and taking the each item and just appending it to that string variable over there. This is the variable which allows me to append. And this section is now for the books. All right. And then I go ahead and do the create item. Now this create item is for the without append for the child or the destination where all the copying is going on, that second list. This is what I'm doing over here. After I've gone ahead and done all this prep work, we went ahead and got the data for the management, for the comments section over there. We went ahead and did all that prep work, saved it as either both types, the HTML or the CSV for the comments. Then over here was for the books, depending on how many selections you've done. We did the prep work over here. After all of that was done, now I'm actually saving the data. And in the saving the data piece over here, it is happening now. In the comments, which I'm doing it in the destination, I'm using the HTML table type. That's why I've kind of put my mouse over there so you can see which one I'm calling the table, which was the HTML table. That's what I did over there. And in the books, what I've done is I've used this nice format. I've done a replace, inner replace. Basically, it's appending. And I'm getting the data over there. This section over here actually really helps to clean up the format. But that's the formula way. I'm kind of keeping my mouse so you can see all of that. It's a nice clean formula. And I'm going ahead and resetting the variable just like I told you before at the beginning. I've got that blank variable which I went ahead and created, kept it blank, and I'm going ahead and resetting it. So I know I covered a lot in this 18-20 minutes video over here, but what I want to kind of quickly go through is again those key ones over here. Is the key ones is basically the commenting section with the append value, and in the append value over here is I've gone ahead and made a post or an HTTP call. It has to be of a method post. It has to have that very specific URI. Once again, I want to keep that over here so you can see that specific URI. And the headers is that except with the application JSON OData non-method over there. Now, in the versioning sections over there, again, it is very important that you go ahead and put in this version section is to map the values that you're getting from HTTP has to come out in this mapped format over here. So that's why I put that. Remember, these two are just options that I'm giving you. In my case, I use HTML format, so that's why I'm creating an HTML. If you are comfortable with just using HTML, you can completely ignore this piece over here. But if you are going to use the CSV instead of HTML, then you can go ahead and just use that and then ignore the top action over there. Finally, in the apply to each, I'm going ahead and, this is specifically for the books type, because I've shown you the option how I was able to select the multiple books. Again, over here I'm appending it. Each item that was selected is going ahead and getting appended to this books variable on that section over here. And then I'm going ahead and saving it to the destination or the child list over there. And that's the simple and easy part. So this basically is the overall of how I was able to go ahead and do the appending. Remember, in the appending piece, the key things were, and we'll quickly go over that. These were the 4 big items that I went ahead and did. I was able to get the appended changes for the multiple ones, the choice one, the lookup ones, and the manage metadata. Even though I put it over here, the emphasis I wanted to show was that even the manage metadata column types, with their taxonomies and term sets, sound a little bit more challenging sometimes. From the copying, the flows got it right down easily, because I was able to just add that column type over there as a manage metadata. I didn't have to do any of the big magic that I had to do for the comments or the choice types. The flow already knows that, hey, the source has a manage metadata type, the destination has a manage metadata type column. I'll just copy it over. You don't have to worry about what you need to do. I've already got this. But for the comments and the choice type columns, we just had to do a little bit more prep work, and that's what I showed. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. Now when you're thinking about doing some archiving of your SharePoint lists and you want to leverage Flow for that, Power Automate Flow for that, and you're still contemplating, what's the destination, if it's got SharePoint lists or if it's got Azure SQL tables or Excel OneDrive, this solution that I just demoed to you will take care of all of that. It's kind of a easy one-stop place to do all of it, and hopefully this was helpful, and keep power automating. Thanks.